guys, right? Let's do this. Fine. Everyone, thank you guys for coming tonight. It's a big thing being able to go ahead and give a share, go ahead and learn it and understand the Klar, to be able to relay it over. Also, this tonight is Lili Nishma, my grandfather, Rachamim Ben Mashallah. It's in his room right now. It should be for his neshama, and it should be a Bezrat Hashem. It should elevate his neshama. So I'm gonna bore you guys a little, and I'm gonna try to keep you guys engaged. I'm gonna ask certain questions to go ahead and keep the audience and whoever's here listening. Obviously, if you want to get up, help yourselves taking food, enjoy. So in front of you tonight, we're doing Ribuy B'Shurim, right? The Ribuy B'Shurim is adding quantity. And the whole discussion tonight is going to be relevant, and it's going to be surrounding different quantities that you could go ahead and do and add on Shabbat and Yom Tov, right? Those are kind of the two main focuses that we're going to be working on tonight. In front of you, I put some places that I pulled sources from. So when I go ahead and when I try to discuss that source, you'll be able to go ahead and follow through. Any questions or anything that you have, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to go ahead and respond back, and if not, go ahead and keep the questions that you have until the end, and hopefully I'll be able to go ahead and answer your question. And I just want to thank Moshe myself for coming in. Okay, fine. So tonight's topic is going to be in regards to Ribuy B'Shurim, adding quantity. So right now, I think it's relevant. We're going into Pesach, which is a Yom Tov, which falls out on Shabbat. So hopefully, whatever we learn tonight is going to be a package that you could go ahead and work on. And if you have any questions, but obviously, whatever I say tonight, ask your local rabbi. And if you have any questions, you can always ask me, because I'm a bucky now for any responses. Fine. So today we're going to go ahead and we're starting with the Gemara in Beitza. Daf 17 Aleph, Yod Zayin Aleph, and the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, Ein ofim Yom Tov lechavero. One may not bake bread on Yom Tov, right? One may not bake bread on Yom Tov. The Emet Amru Mamla Isha Kala Kedera. So one may not bake bread for the next day of Yom Tov. So if you need bread today for Yom Tov, you can't go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and make for tomorrow. Fine. Next, if a woman goes ahead and fills up an entire pot with water, and then she goes ahead and she needs one piece of meat inside. We say that she may go ahead and put many pieces of meat inside to go ahead and cook. So again, first case we say you cannot. Second case we say you could. And then the third case says, even though she doesn't need it for the meat, she could do it. So then the third case is there's a baker who needs a jug of water to go ahead and bake and use the water to steam up the oven or whatever the use was. It says here that he could go even though he needs just a jug, he could go ahead and take a big bucket of water to go ahead and do what he needs, right? Again, back to the focus is going to be on quantity. Okay, so now we go ahead and we continue. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Isha kol tanur pot. A woman may fill an entire oven with bread. Right? She could go ahead and fill up the oven and use it to go ahead and cook. We just said you can't. So here what we're saying is that why could she go ahead and fill it up with bread? So two cases we said you cannot. One case we're saying we could. Now, and I want you guys to remember, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is saying here that you could go ahead and put bread inside the oven. So we continue. It says, so what happens is when you go ahead and cook bread, you put a lot of bread inside of the tanur, the oven, and they say when there's more bread, it concentrates the heat, and it goes ahead and cooks the bread better. So sarech gufo on Yom Tov, for ochel nefesh, you could go ahead and put in a lot of bread, right? Okay, let's put that aside. Amar Rava says, halacha ki Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Halacha is like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar.
You're saying that the idea is that like you're allowed to like cook on Yom Tov or whatever to an extent. But even if you don't need those extra breads that you're putting into the oven, you can still put them into the oven because it helps the bread the only one bread that you need to cook.
Correct.
Okay.
And the main topic of quantity we'll tackle on, and you'll see you'll get the response, or you'll see where we go with it.
Why can't we cook? Why it's for 2 days Yom Tov? You have it from one day to the next.
Correct.
The
You
Chana?
do one day and you go to the next.
Okay.
Correct. Fine. We see from this Gemara, right, that although one may not cook from day to day, from one day of Yom Tov to the next, but if she's making food for today, she can add in quantity while she doesn't need it at all for the same day. She can leave extra for the next day. So we see still into the two cases that you could go ahead and leave it, but we'd see with the pot you cannot. Okay, so Gemara continues saying like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, adding quantity only applies to cooking where it is all in one pot and one effort, right? Where it is baking bread, each piece of bread, you have to go ahead and work. You need to cut the dough, you need to weave it, you need to roll it. There's work, right? As opposed, and also, I don't know if you guys remember, in Israel when we would go, or the bread, they would go ahead, flatten the bread and throw it on top of the oven.
Yeah.
And remember?
Tanura.
Exactly. So, and each one has to be individually taken out, rolled. So there's more work that's intended and needed for the bread. So we go ahead and we say, but regarding baking, only if you go ahead and you need it. So that's why Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says you can't, because it goes ahead and it's more work. And we go ahead, but if you need it in regards to for cooking the bread, making it perfect, you could go ahead and have many breads in there. Okay, put that aside now. Next, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar now comes and says, continuing with the Gemara, that only way you can cook more bread is by putting more bread will help cooking the current bread and spreading the heat in the oven. Why? Because today's bread will taste better and it's allowed. Okay, now the Rishonim ask. So now we're going to go to the next Gemara, which is going to be Menachem 64a, right? So now the Rishonim are going to ask on this, that you can add quantity while cooking in a pot on Yom Tov, right? So the two cases that you could. From a Gemara in Menachem that says the following. Everyone's holding? Okay. Bai Rabba. So the key word, Bai. Rabba raises a question. Cholesh amdu l'shtei gerorot. A sick person that needs that goes to a doctor gets evaluated. Ve'eshte gargorot, and the doctor says they need to have 2 figs. B'shtei uksin, right? B'shtei uksin and b'shtei uksin v'shalosha be'ukat achat. Fine. So they go to a doctor. There's a sick person. Doctor evaluates. The person says you need to have 2 figs to get better. They go to the tree to go ahead and take 2 figs. They find 2 branches with 1 fig each. Then they go and they find 1 branch with 3 figs, right? What would you guys say you could do? Which one do we go ahead and cut?
Is the cutting the answer?
Based on what again, quantity is the focus, right? So let's
Right.
focus on quantity. So if quantity is the focus, and we say before in Beitza that you could go ahead and take 2, I mean you could go ahead and put more. You could go ahead and put more with the meat. You could go ahead and put more. The baker could go ahead and put more water. Now, in a case here, if there's again 2 branches, 1 fig on each, and there's 1 branch with 3, which has more quantity, which one, according to the Gemara, would we say you could go ahead and use?
Is that to cut the branch?
It's
Again.
for refuah. It's for refuah.
But it's for refuah, correct?
For the cooking, it's conducive for the enhancement of the actual food. But here, what you're doing is when you break that branch, it's nourishing 3 different fruits. But taking 2, I would say would be mutter, not the 3.
Okay. All good points, right? So now we're gonna continue. So we're now Beitza, we're in Menachem, and then I'm gonna walk you down the road. Okay, so you would go ahead and say that having the 2, some people say take the 2 because you don't need 3, and others are saying no, go ahead and you're cutting 1 branch, and even though you're getting 3, you still get the 2 that you need, and 1 if you need it for the next day of Yom Tov, you could potentially use it there, right? There's other uses for it. Okay, good. Fine. We continue. So now the Gemara answers. It is obvious. Pshita. Right? Pshita, shalosh. Right? The 3, it's less work. You go ahead, you cut one branch, and that's it, you're good. So the Gemara answered, obvious that we bring 3 figs because in Beitzah, we learn quantity with cooking is allowed, and therefore you can bring 3 figs. And even though a sick person needs 2, all you're doing is adding quantity, which is the same malacha. Okay. Now let's delve, right? Trying to throw some Ashkenaz. Let's dive further into this. I'm gonna ask you guys. I'm gonna ask you guys a better question now, right? Now we're gonna ask on Rava's question of which one could you go ahead and do, 2 individual branches or 1 3 branch. Okay. Now in the case where you have 2 stems with 1 fig, each and 2 on one and 3 on the other, what would you say in a case if you had 1 stem with 2 figs and another stem with 3 figs? Right? Could you cut the one with more figs since it's the same malacha and quantity? Right? So the question now is, you have 2.
You take 2. You don't need 3.
Exactly. But why can't you take 3?
You're saying because it's not anymore malacha.
Correct. It's the same. You have 1 branch, 2. You have 1 branch with 3. I would say, if I could do 3 on the 2, so take the 3 and Shabbat Shalom. Have one in your back pocket.
What are you going to do with the other one?
You save it to chayit. These are to chayit.
You have to eat it the same day. Now you cannot have it for the next day.
No. We said because you need it now. What you need now, you could go ahead and do. You could go ahead and do for now. So again, you have 2 or 3. Cut 3. Again, same work, same everything.
If it was so pasha that you're able to use the 3 in the last case, then it seems like there was no issue or isser really if there was so pasha. So seemingly, it would. I mean, if there's only 1 isser of cutting,
You're doing
you're not.
Moshe, what do you say?
It's 1 isser it's 1 isser of cutting in the branch.
It sounds like it's only what you need and not more.
All valid, all good.
Taking away the nourishment of 3. That's the problem here. Even though it's the same mindset, but what you're doing is taking an extra one, which you had no reason to have. You're not allowed to go more than you're allowed to go.
I hear. Okay. So, you ready, guys? I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna ask even more. Hold on. We're getting started. Okay. So again, case we have 3, and so first case 2 branches and 1 2, and then second thing we bring up, we're asking on Rava on that question. We're saying, okay, there's 1 branch with 2, 1 branch with 3. You would assume and say, what do you mean? It's the same thing, same quantity. Go ahead and do 3, right? So now, the real thing is, we see in the Gemara in Menachem that the whole question of Rava only exists in a case where you have 2 stems with one fig on each, right? And then one branch with 3. But if you go to a case where you have 1 stem with 2 and 1 with 3, it is simple that you cannot bring the one with 3 figs. Why? Because the question is, why not? All he is doing is adding quantity, like what we learned in Beitzah, right? So what we were saying, like the meat, it should be fine. So the answer is Rashba answers now. Okay? So Rashba is answering on Rava. Rashba answers that according to Torah, there's no Isser, and I love to add my English parts, prohibition, to add quantity, right? There's no Isser. It was the Rabbanon who came along and made it Asr. Why? So when it comes to Shabbat, and all of this, we're, by the way, I should mention it, we're talking about Yom Tov. We aren't saying Shabbat. Because Shabbat, we know that you can't. This is all on Yom Tov. We're going to get to Shabbat. Fine. So, the Rabbanim came out and said it's Asr. So when it comes to Shabbat, the Rabbanim were stringent, because you could go ahead and you're Chayav Skila. Right? So they made a takana, and they say you can't go ahead and do this because Chayav Skila. But if someone transgresses Shabbat, and therefore the Gemara in Menachem that is talking about Shabbat, one may not cut the stems with 3 figs. Because if he has a stem with 2 figs, then he's Yotzeh. He's right? So if someone goes and by mistake cuts 3 on Shabbat, that's the issue. So we could go ahead and we say, no, you go ahead and cut the one with 2 figs. Okay. Whereas in Beitzah, what we were learning before, it's on Yom Tov, which is only a lav. And for a lav, you get malkut. as the punishment. So the Rabbanim were lenient and allowed you to cook extra quantity. So the separation and differentiation between the two, one is Yom Tov, one is Shabbat. So everyone's correct. On Yom Tov, I would assume to take 3. On Shabbat, you could go ahead and you would assume, but again, according to the Rabbanim, you can't. So we say you take 2. Okay, perfect. We're still good on time?
Yeah, good on time.
Yeah, okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead, and now there's a Tosfot. We're going to ask, Tosfot asks on this Gemara in Eruvin.
What was your question? Sorry,
The question is, Agiyah Derech Darim, with okay.
Say by English.
Okay, there's a tree that has a branch.
What is your question? Yeah.
No, we're asking, so there's 2 parts.
Question?
So there was 2 questions, right? The first question is, Rava says, Rava brings up, if there is a branch, someone needs 2 figs. And there's a branch that has, each one has 1, and then there's 1 branch with 2.
Okay.
Which one could you go ahead and do? Sorry, 1 with 3. Which one could you go ahead and cut?
It says obvious, that's 3.
Okay, fine. But it's not obvious, because it also says that Pshita, it's simple, and then after it's saying that you can't, so fine. I'm going to say why not. Then the second question is, on on Rava, was that if there's 1 branch with 3, and 1 branch with 2, which one could you go ahead and do? So based on what we would have said, like you said, Rava in the beginning said, you could go ahead and cut the one with 3. But now we're saying, no, you go ahead and cut the one with 2. So the question is, so then we would do 3. Here in a case where 2 and 3, we go ahead and cut the one with 2. Why? Because in this case it's Shabbat, and in that case it's on Yom Tov. And then also further, the Rabbanim made a takana.
But this case is different from the Shabbat, because here in 1 cut you do shtei gerorot or 3. Over there you have to do 2 cuts.
No, we say you do the 3. In the other case, we say you do the 3.
All the question is if you need to do 2 cuts or 1 cut.
Correct. But now we're
Over
changing.
there in Shabbat, it's not the 2 cut or 1 cut.
No, so
It's
that
only 1 cut.
Menachem's question was, why does Rava only ask from a case of we have two stems with 1 fig each, and another stem with 3? You should have asked the better case. In the case we have 1 branch with 2, and another branch with 3. Can you cut the one with 3? If you're allowed to add quantities on Shabbat, then you should be able to cut the one with 3. It's the same malacha. I can cut 1 branch and have 2. I'll cut another branch and have 3. The fact that Rav doesn't ask that question, we see that he holds. In such a case, it's simple. You can only cut the one with 2, right? And the question is, why can you not cut the one with 3?
Could say.
It's not a good question, I think.
Just also, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, the Leosif is midoraita, not like Rashbam. I mean,
He's
gonna get
that.
it.
We're getting there.
He's getting there.
We're getting there, exactly.
The whole 3 hours ready for it.
Yeah, fine. So now we're going to go to the next part. Fine. So now we're going to say on Tosfot is going to ask on. Now Tosfot is going to ask on Gemara and Eruvin, right? So now that's the last Gemara. Nema, what does the Gemara say in Eruvin? Shimon?
You're asking me.
Because you know why I'm asking you? Read it and you'll see why. It's related to a Brit Milah. Nemat at every Brit Milah. He's the one that gives the baby the wine. He's the one that helps out. You should know the halacha of Brit Milah. So it says, Hayu Yonka. A certain baby who's warm water. Chamime amalahu Rava. Right? Spilled. And they went up to Rava and they said, so there's a child that's born, and back in the day they would bathe the child in warm water, and that was their comfort before the brit. And I think also after the brit possibly they would go ahead and do it. They had water, and they were warming it up on Shabbat, right? It was on Shabbat, and the water spilled. So they went to Rava and they said, what do we do in this case? So Rava says, if it's necessary for the mother, right, you could go ahead and heat it up. And if it's
And add the water for the kid.
correct, then you could go ahead and add the water. So if the mother needs it for the mother's health and for the mother, she could then you could fill up quantity, and then you could give it and help the child out. Okay?
What do you mean?
Wait, the mother or the baby?
The
mother's
mother.
choleh, she just gave
Why
birth.
not the
I know, but I feel like
Baisa.
it's all about the baby.
The baby's not a chole yet.
Yeah,
Wait, this is before
the
the
baby's
brit
getting a
milah.
brit. The baby didn't get the brit
It's
yet.
before-
The
it's
mother
before
just
the
gave
brit.
birth, and
Mother's a chol.
yeah, the mother's a chol. Okay, fine. So we continue. So there's the question. The case is talking about Shabbat, but now according to the way the Rashba explained that adding quantity is allowed only on Yom Tov, as we saw, in Beitza, right, which is more strict. The Rabbanim were more stringent and don't allow to add quantity. On Shabbat, correct. As we saw in the case of the figs and Menachot, how can we go ahead and now on Shabbat add water for the baby? So again, from Beitza to Menachot to here, right? So again, one more time. The Gemara is bringing up a case and it's talking about the Rashba explained that adding quantity is allowed only on Yom Tov, as we saw in Beitza. Then on Shabbat, we spoke about with the figs, the Ramban were more stringent and said you can't add quantity, right? So now, as we saw in that case in Menachot, so now how can we go ahead on Shabbat, add water here for the baby? You follow me?
Oh, probably don't.
Okay, fine. So we answer. Now Tosfot answers. Tosfot answers that we get, so we actually read it in the Gemara. It said, one answer is, we get a non-Jew. We get someone not Jewish, we say, hey, alo, bat, mard, whatever, mituni, can you go ahead, fill it up, can you get us water? Right? In such a case, the Rabban did not prohibit adding quantity. So if you got someone not Jewish, no problem. Get them to fill it up. There's another answer that we go ahead and give for even a Jew. So a Jew could go ahead and heat up the water. This is a special case, being that the Brit is doche Shabbat. It pushes off Shabbat, so it comes first. So adding quantity for the baby's needs would be allowed. So whereas in regard to Melachot,
Adding
mother,
quantity
no, but
for
you're
the baby.
adding it for the mother, correct.
So it seems like it's like
The Gemara and the Torah always has their umps, but correct.
No, the adding quantities for the baby. You heat up the water in the first place for the mother.
right.
I think that the meal is
The
like
heter
the
is going
Shabbos.
straight from the mother, and then to the baby, and then a heter on the baby.
Right, they had to add quantities for the baby because just like you can do the meal on Shabbos, right? The meal is Deicha Shabbos, so too this Ribuy Shiurim will also
Just
be
the
Deicha
Shiur,
Shabbos.
which is Rib Derabah.
Rabbanan allow them to
Right.
add
No, I
quantities.
understand that it's going from the we're able to heat up extra water from the mother, because the mother, she's the one who's the chola,
So that
and then
means
it's like Agav the baby, and now we're saying
No,
No,
Agav the
no.
mother.
the baby's getting extra water out of the mother.
Because
I
also-
got the mother, but at the end of the day, the Isser is it's going, meaning the mother is the one who's permitted to get the bath.
Correct.
If the permit the okay, and then adding
But
on
you're
top of that,
doing
the
it
baby.
because of that. We're doing like the same thing with the meat. Why do we say in Beitza? We said the meat is there. We're adding the meat to give it what it needs. So yes, there's benefit, but we're
But then it's
adding
like
to it. So
saying,
same thing.
I'm
The
able
water.
to put something
There has
onto
to
the
be.
meat because I'm able to
Let me ask you a
heat it.
question.
It's
Could
like-
you go ahead? Could you go ahead and cook it right away? If it's not Yom Tov, I mean, if you're not, can you cook for tomorrow? No, we're saying the whole thing is today. So the same thing. The hot water is going to be needed for the mother, and the fact that it's already getting heated. Okay, add more quantity to it. That go ahead and you could use.
I feel like you're just saying that it sounds like you found a reason for the hot
loophole.
water. Like the baby needed it, and then you're like, okay, let's find something that the hot
No,
water.
if the
can
mom
do.
says I don't need it, then you know how to do it.
I hear
It's
it.
not I'm not
I
like,
think
as-
the
as-
idea
as-
the
right now
idea
I'm
is
saying-
that the only issue to add for the baby is Derabanan. Ribuy B'Shurim is Derabanan. Once it's Derabanan, the Rabbanan could allow Ribuy B'Shurim for the
like a
bread.
Gilgal
That's
Ribuy
different.
Shirim.
No. Since it's an issue Derabanan and Mila is already Docha Shabbos, Mila has a certain status to it. So therefore, Rabbanan won't go there in such a situation. Once it's a Gzera Derabanan to begin with, so Rabbanan can
They have the rights to limit it and say,
right, to limit their Gzera. So just like they didn't go
Why you just
there.
go on that heter from the beginning?
I'm saying just like they weren't goes there. No.
You don't have to go to the mother. You just go straight to there.
that's the rights
Because
of them.
you
Heating
can't
up water
do
Shabbos is their rights.
Cooking is their rice on Shabbat. Adding for someone that it needs to be cooked for already is their Rabbanan.
Okay.
So the Rabbanan, just like they weren't goes
Okay.
there on Yom Tov, Ribuy B'Shurim, so they weren't goes there in the situation of Mila.
So I'm going to ask, and I think we elaborate a little further here. The Ran asks now, that according to the Rishonim, that adding quantity is allowed by Torah law, but again, so technically the Torah says you could add water, but the Rabbanim said no because of the Gezerah. So in Gemara Menachem, it discusses a sick person that needs the figs. What was Rava's doubt that you should cut the one with two and not with three? Because by cutting the two stems, you're adding by cutting two, it's still right. So you get malkut, right? Skila. But by the case of stems, which is the Rabbanan, which is on Yom Tov, you're only adding quantity, so that's not going to be as strict, right? I think. Okay, so based on this, the Ran argues on the other Rishonim, and he holds that adding quantity is prohibited according to Torah law. And the Gemara questioned that maybe it is better to do two malchot deoraita, two melachot deoraita for pikuach nefesh, saving a sick person's life, rather than doing one melacha iser deoraita for adding quantity, which is not necessary for an ill person, being that the doctor recommended 2 figs. So again, so I think from here we're saying that what they said in Menachot, that we should have only gone ahead and cut the 2 single ones, that if it's on Shabbat, because going ahead and cutting the one with 3 is going to be a deoraita, which is a bigger punishment. Correct, is a bigger punishment, and the one going ahead and cutting the 3 is the 2 is a deoraita, and that's necessary for this. Correct, that's necessary.
That argues
so
on Menachem.
we just completely took it the other way.
No, in the Menachem, he's saying that when you cut 2, even though it's 2 malachas of cutting, right, of reaping, that each one is necessary for the chayla. Whereas if you cut 3, the third one the chayla doesn't need. You only take Shabbos for pikuach nefesh. Right, so you actually can bring the 2. But the third one,
he's asking how to explain
the Gemara Menachem says it's Shita.
right, because the Gemara acts as cheating with the 3 because there's only one malacha. But the Havamina was of Rava.
Okay, fine. So
Right.
then
The Havamina, correct. Yeah, the Havamina, correct. Yeah, I missed the Havamina, correct. The other side would have been that because the way the Torah looks at it, and because the way the Rabbanim went ahead and put a takana, that it would actually make sense back to what we said before, that you could go ahead and cut two single branches as opposed to the one thing.
The doctor told him that it needs an animal, like he needs to eat meat, right? And there's 2 animals, one's big, one's small. Cannot be,
It depends quantity, how much animal.
So that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Quantity is
That's,
allowed.
I would say quantity, meaning this is direct. The Gemara is
The
asking.
Maisa Shchita is the same Maisa. The same malacha of Shchita on a small and big animal.
Another branch be the same too.
no.
No, because one is, like you said, it has a nourishment of 3.
I think the Minchas
They discussed with that, exactly.
Shafting a big animal was small. It's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good point, but I think Maskana is the Maisa is one Maisa of Shchita, which doesn't change the size of the animal.
So, and I think it ends with what we just both saw, that here we have machloket rishonim, whether adding quantities is allowed, whether it's midoraita or midarabanan. So we ended that it's a machloket. There's both sides. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and end with some practical halacha regarding Yom Tov for someone who wants to add quantity and when it is necessary. For that day's meals. Again, you can't go ahead and do anything on Yom Tov for the second day. Obviously, certain conditions apply. Speak to your local rabbi authority for halacha. But 4 things that I'm just going to touch on quickly. If you're cooking water, and all the water has to be if you're cooking water, all the water has to be in the pot before you place it on the fire, right? But once on the fire, you cannot add water. By cooking meat, though, being that more meat is in the pot, the taste goes ahead and enhances. So the halacha would be that you could go ahead and put more meat. That we learned and that we saw. Okay, fine. So same thing with bread. If someone needs bread, they could go ahead and put a whole thing of bread. They could put bread in on Yom Tov to go ahead and enhance the taste of their bread. Fine.
Would you repeat it again? About the Yom Tov, put the water.
Yom Tov, once the water is on the pot, you can't add more water.
For tomorrow.
For tomorrow.
Because more water is not going to enhance the cooking of the first one.
Yeah, for tomorrow, sorry. But if you go ahead and you put something inside, you could continue putting more stuff.
In there, you can add more meat.
You can add more.
On the fire because the more meat has more fat on it, it enhances.
Yeah. Fine. Number 2, even here, if you add quantity, but you cannot speak out, you could add quantity. But if you can't say, oh, man, I'm going to do it today, but I'm also going to have enough for tomorrow. you can't speak that out. Even though you could go out and make a soup, for example, enjoy it today, and if you happen to have extra for tomorrow and you make a massive pot, that's fine. Okay.
Don't say it.
Don't say finish shtick, just don't say it out
Yeah.
loud.
Yeah.
Another question is when you're breading schnitzel, you can only bread, right? You can only bread what you need for that day, right? You don't have the leniency of adding quantity for Yom Tov, being each piece is its own effort, right? You gotta put egg, you gotta put batter. So it's not like, oh, I have to make 50 pieces because it's gonna make my 2 pieces taste good. No, each piece of schnitzel is individual, okay? And number 4 is the Taz allows you to cook all different foods on Yom Tov. This is a Taz. I think this is what you were touching on before. The Taz says that you could go ahead and you could go ahead and make all different kinds of food on Yom Tov, even though there's going to be leftover for tomorrow, as long as you go ahead and taste it, right? You have to go ahead and taste every single thing that you made, and as long as you go ahead and taste it, you're fine. Fine. If you have any questions, ask your rabbi. I want to thank you all again. Thank you all for coming.
What are you here for then?
No, and I also a big thank you for my chavruta for really helping me put this together. And thank you to Rabbi Ariel for coordinating. Thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, I hope I explained it correctly, and I hope I was able to answer any of your questions. But anything you have, let me know. I'll be glad to go ahead and help answer. Shkoyach.